Do you consider yourself a generous person? I'm Matthew Kelly. Welcome back to Radical and Relevant. I love this time. We have a few minutes each day to reflect on the gospel. And today's reading comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 21, verses 1 through 4. Jesus looked up, and he saw the rich putting their gifts into the treasury. And he saw a poor widow put in 2 copper coins. And he said, "Truly I tell you, this widow has put in more than all of them. And they all contributed out of their abundance. But she, out of her poverty, put in all the living that she had." What does the Holy Spirit draw your mind to today? Draw your heart to in this today? Is there a specific word or phrase or an idea? I think for me, one thing that strikes me always when I read this is that Jesus was watching people put money into the treasury. And I find that fascinating. He was sitting there and he was watching people put money into the treasury. You know, if Jesus was watching me in my giving, I think to myself, gee, what would he be saying to the disciples over there? If he was watching me in my giving, what would he be saying? You know, and very often I think he'd be saying the same thing as he said about the rich people here. He said, like, they gave out of their abundance, you know, and you know, a lot of giving that we do, a lot of giving that Maggie and I do, it doesn't like change our life. It doesn't, I don't go without in some of this giving, you know. For us to really give sacrificially, we have to do that intentionally. And it doesn't come, I don't think it comes naturally, it doesn't come easily, maybe to anybody. But I think, yeah, we're like that, those rich people, you know. And Jesus is saying they're giving out of their abundance. He's not saying it's bad. He's just pointing out they're giving out of their abundance. And the widow, she's giving sacrificially, right? She's giving from like what she lives on. And that's beautiful. It's amazing, right? It's staggering, really. And this is like, who do we see in this? Like I've talked to you before about like reading the gospel through different lenses, you know, and sometimes I'll say, you know, pick a virtue. You could pick a virtue of patience and just read the whole gospel of, you know, we're in Luke. Just read the whole gospel of Luke through the lens of patience, you know, or pick the virtue of generosity and read the whole gospel of Luke just through the virtue of generosity. Another way I love to do it is like through the eyes of like the saints, you know, and ask, okay, which saint does this reading remind you of? For me, it's Francis of Assisi, right? He had this radical generosity. He had this radical giving everything to poor and laying his life before God in this complete surrender. And so what are we called to? We're called to live the gospel, which is radical and relevant. And it's radical and relevant in our hearts when we allow it to penetrate. Have a great day. And remember, be bold, be Catholic.